This happened a few weeks ago. I'm Ben, 35, a park ranger, and I love this job. I always felt it was my duty to protect these woods and the people who come to enjoy them. I took my responsibilities seriously, especially after my recent promotion. Most days were quiet. I enjoyed the peacefulness of the park and the sounds of nature. Everyone talks about the beauty here, but they don't see what goes on in the less traveled areas. One evening, I was on patrol when I noticed some strange markings on a tree near a campsite. I didn't think much of it at first. Maybe just some graffiti or kids messing around. But the shapes felt wrong. I got back to the office later that night, and I felt this unease creeping in. I can't explain it. Over the next few weeks, things got weirder. I heard cries in the distance. At first I thought maybe it was an animal or something, but it didn't sound like anything I recognized. I felt cold chills every time the wind blew through the trees. There were moments when I thought I saw something moving in the shadows. I listened to the other rangers share their stories. They talked about feeling watched, about missing items. One told me he swore he saw people that weren't really there, figures slipping between the trees, just out of reach. I thought he was joking at first, but he looked serious. As I continued my patrols, I noticed that the forest seemed to shift around me. The trails I knew by heart felt different. The air was thick, like it was holding its breath. I began to feel like I was being drawn deeper into something unknown. My instincts were screaming at me to stop, yet a part of me wanted to push forward. One night while sitting in my truck, I heard that cry again. It was so close. My heart raced as I grabbed my flashlight and stepped outside. The woods felt heavy. I scanned the trees. There was nothing. Just then I heard rustling behind me. My pulse quickened as I felt trapped. I turned around, but nothing was there. Days passed and the feeling only got worse. I can't explain it. It's like I was losing touch with reality. The quiet that usually wrapped around me became oppressive. I thought I saw figures again. They were moving just outside my vision. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. The forest felt like it was swallowing my voice. Then one day I stumbled upon those markings again. They were more vivid now, almost pulsating. I backed away. My heart was pounding, and I turned to run. As I did, I heard whispers. They were faint but clear in my mind. I still don't know what they said, but I think I'll remember them forever. I turned back to the path, but it felt like it wasn't leading me out. The trees loomed and I panicked. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was behind me. I didn't look. Maybe I did the only thing I could do. I ran. Then I heard something say my name. I stopped. It was behind me. I turned around. Nobody was there. I couldn't shake the chills as I stood there, heart racing. The night air was still, but it felt charged. I had a choice to make: go deeper into the woods or head back to my truck. My instincts screamed at me to leave, but curiosity tugged at my mind. What had been lurking just beyond the trees? Taking a deep breath, I turned back to the path. Each footstep felt like an echo in the silence. I shone my flashlight on the ground, the beams slicing through the darkness. I had to find answers. If something was out there, I needed to know what. As I walked, I passed the tree with the strange markings again. They seemed to shimmer in the light, twisting into shapes that sent my mind racing. I stepped closer, feeling drawn to them. My pulse quickened as I traced the outline with my finger. It felt warm, almost alive. That's when I heard it, a soft rustle like leaves whispering secrets. I spun around, half expecting something to emerge, but there was only darkness. The shadows felt deeper now. I forced myself to breathe steadily. Just a deer, I told myself, trying to calm the frantic thoughts in my head. But I knew it had sounded too deliberate, too intentional. Then I heard it clearly, a voice barely above a whisper calling my name again. Ben. It echoed in the trees, sending chills down my spine. I stepped backward, feeling the rough bark of a tree against my back. It was coming from the direction of the markings. Ben. The voice almost sounded familiar, like someone I knew. Without thinking, I rushed towards the markings, hoping to find something, anything that could explain what was happening. The forest around me felt alive, almost pulsing with energy. I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting to see something come after me. but all I saw was the moonlight filtering through the branches, leaving strange patterns on the ground. I reached the tree and looked for any further signs. Just then I noticed a small object at the base of the trunk, half buried in the leaves. I knelt down and cleared the debris away. It was a necklace, tarnished and frayed. My heart raced. It felt like I was crossing a line into someone else's story. I picked it up, and in that moment the whispers grew louder. They swirled around me, echoing through the trees, drowning out my thoughts. "Help us," they said. I looked around, panic rising. Who needed help? But the fear that gripped me made it impossible to think rationally. I wanted to run again, to escape this nightmare. But that pull, the curiosity, wouldn't let me go. Suddenly I heard a snap behind me, like a twig breaking. I spun around, the shadows shifted. I couldn't see anything, but I felt it, the weight of someone or something, lurking just out of reach, watching. I gripped the necklace tightly. I had to know what it meant. But before I could decide my next move, everything went dark. My flashlight flickered and died, leaving me in a suffocating blackness. Fear surged through me as I fumbled with the switch. That's when I felt it, a breath on my neck, warm and unnerving. I froze. The breath was gone just as quickly as it had come, leaving a chill that danced along my skin. My heart thundered in my chest, drowning out the forest's eerie sounds. I felt trapped, isolated in that suffocating darkness. I jabbed at my flashlight, praying it would flicker back to life. Nothing. I was in complete blackness, the kind that makes your imagination run wild. I wanted to scream, to call for help, but the words stuck in my throat. Instead, I moved, sliding my hand against the rough bark of the tree behind me for support. I had to get out of there. I took a shaky step forward and then another. Sound seemed to bounce in the darkness. Every crack and rustle felt amplified, as if the woods were alive with unseen eyes watching. My fingers brushed against the necklace again, its cold metal contrasting sharply with the warmth of my palm. What had I picked up? Was it a clue or a curse? Then, I heard it again. More rustling, this time followed by soft, deliberate footsteps. My breath caught in my throat. I wasn't alone. The whispers echoed in my mind, pushing me to figure out what was happening. I needed to make a decision. Moving carefully, I began to retrace my steps. I couldn't see, but behind me was the path, the way back to my truck, my one lifeline in this unnerving place. But each time I took a step, the whispering grew louder. "Help us." Footsteps came closer, and suddenly, the hairs on my neck stood at attention. Anxiety coursed through me. I stopped, straining my ears to pinpoint where the sound was coming from. It was gaining on me. Breathless, I turned again and took another step back. The tree loomed, solid and still. Maybe I could hide for a moment, gather my thoughts. But as I leaned against the trunk, a shaky whisper filled the air. "Ben, please." It was undeniably familiar, yet unfamiliar at the same time. A face floated in my mind, someone I thought I knew long ago. I swallowed hard, trying to place it. Who was calling me? What did they want? My flashlight flickered back to life, casting patches of light into the encroaching darkness. I aimed it in the direction of the footsteps. What I saw froze me solid. A figure stood between the trees, barely illuminated, the light barely tracing the outline. I could barely make out their features. It looked almost human, but something went wrong along the way. Deep-set eyes bore into mine, and a mouth opened to speak, though no sound came out. Panic gripped me again, and I decided it was now or never. I bolted, heart pounding, desperate for the trail back. I could hear the figure move, but I didn't dare look back. I raced through the woods, branches scratching at my face and arms, my breath uneven and loud in my own ears. But the whispers didn't stop. "Help us." I could feel them drawing closer as I stumbled, tripping over roots and uneven ground. Yet strange as it felt, I couldn't dismiss their urgency, their desperation. The woods were alive with a primal energy, and I was caught right in the middle of it. Then I heard it. A voice, clear and desperate among the whispers. "Ben!" Suddenly everything felt different. I skidded to a halt, my feet digging into the loamy soil. I knew whose voice it was. but the realization sent my heart racing, and I wondered anew. What did they want from me? What did I have to do with it all? I faced the trees, breath coming fast as the darkness surrounded me once more. The necklace dangled from my fingers, shimmering ominously in the beam of my flashlight. This was only the beginning. I struggled to catch my breath, my heart racing as I stood frozen in the darkness. The woods were so quiet now, but the name echoed in my mind. Ben. How could anyone here know my name? I tightened my grip on the necklace, the cool metal grounding me in this surreal moment. Then I moved again. I took a deep breath and aimed my flashlight, trying to pierce the thick shadows around me. But flashes of movement, small and fleeting, caught my eye. It was like something was scurrying away, darting between the trees, just out of reach. I couldn't shake the feeling that it was leading me somewhere. Come, a soft voice called, fading into the rustling leaves. The urge to follow was intoxicating, and I hesitated. Could I trust this presence? Could whatever was out here truly help me? Or would it only draw me deeper into danger? I felt the necklace swinging against my chest, almost urging me forward. I was torn. Before I could weigh my options, I heard footsteps again, more deliberate this time. They weren't the soft, rustling steps from before. No, these were heavy, firm. My pulse quickened. The figure from earlier? I didn't want to find out. I clutched my flashlight tighter and began moving cautiously through the underbrush. I pushed through the undergrowth, each crack of twigs underfoot loud enough to alert the unseen. Dark shapes shifted in my peripheral vision, but I refused to look. I couldn't give in to fear now. A low growl interrupted my thoughts, vibrating through the air. I froze, adrenaline flooding my veins. My flashlight flickered again and then burst into a brilliant beam, illuminating a clearing ahead. The shadows fell behind me, momentarily pushed back. In that sudden light, the scene before me froze time. A large stone formation, stark and strange, stood in the center of the opening. It looked like a crude altar, with carvings that hinted at something more sinister. Deep grooves etched along its surface formed crooked symbols I couldn't decipher. Were they warnings or a call for help? I edged closer, unable to resist the pull of curiosity. But as I reached out to touch the weathered stone, the growl returned, closer now. A fear now intermingled with the urgency I felt from the whispers. Whatever was behind me was no longer hiding. Whispers turned into sharp cries. Ben, help us. Help. The forest erupted into frantic movement. I turned to face the direction of the sound. Shadows twisted and charged, forming into indistinct shapes. They moved quickly, circling as if I were the prey. Panic surged through me, but I couldn't turn back to the altar. Not now. Ben, please. The voice I recognized pierced through the chaos, drawing my attention back toward the altar. There was something there beyond my fear. I had to know. Before I had time to think, I turned back and rushed toward the stone, desperate to understand what was happening. That's when I saw it, a figure materializing at the stone's base. My heart dropped. The resemblance was uncanny. No, I whispered, realization washing over me. I had to find out who they were and why they needed me. But then the shadows lunged forward. I had no choice but to make a decision to confront what was lurking in the dark. The haunting calls for help became a distant echo as I faced whatever was emerging from the depths. Knowing whatever lay ahead could change everything. The figure at the stone shifted and took form. It was a woman, her features a haunting mix of familiarity and sorrow. I squinted, stepping closer despite the shadows swirling around me. "Who are you?" I managed to ask, my voice barely a whisper. "Ben," she said, her tone both pleading and strained. "You've come back." "Back? I couldn't finish my thought. She was someone from my past, but the memories felt blurred and distant. Her eyes glimmered with urgency. Before I could piece everything together, the growling returned, deeper and more menacing. The shadows converged at the edges of the clearing, coiling like serpents ready to strike. I felt a shiver skitter down my spine. "What do you want from me?" The woman stepped forward, her gaze locking onto mine. "You have to listen. They're trapped. We can't break free without your help." Trapped? The word echoed in my mind. Who's trapped? What's going on here? She gestured sharply toward the stone altar. The markings, they bind us here. You have to help us break the spell. It only works if you touch it. Something primal tugged at me, urging me to trust her. But the shadows were closing in, and the growls intensified. I didn't have much time. How do I break it? Look, she cried, pointing frantically at the symbols carved into the altar. Find the one that matches your heart. I turned my attention back to the stone. Under my flashlight, I could see the jagged carvings twisting and curling in strange patterns. Fear coursed through me, and I felt an overwhelming sense of urgency. I had to do this now. I moved closer, scanning the markings frantically. But then I caught a glimpse of movement from the corner of my eye. Dark figures charged into the clearing, their shapes more defined now. They were not human. Slender and elongated, with glowing eyes that pierced through the darkness. I gripped the flashlight tighter and took a step back. What are they? I gasped. Monsters, the woman shouted, fear etched across her face. They want to keep us here. I felt the cool metal of the necklace against my chest again, reminding me of my connection to this moment. I couldn't falter. I had to act now. I scanned the symbols once more, feeling an almost magnetic pull toward one in particular. It was unlike the others, radiant and undecorated, carved with symmetry that caught my breath. I reached out instinctively. As my fingertips grazed the stone, an electric shock raced through me. Colors flashed and a soft hum filled the air around us. The ground trembled beneath my feet. I pulled my hand back and the altar pulsed with energy. The shadows hesitated, their growls turning to confusion. Yes, that's it, the woman urged. Press harder. But as I prepared to touch it again, I felt a cold wind whip around me. The monstrous figures lunged forward and the clearing shimmered before my eyes, distorting like a mirage. Ben! The woman screamed, reaching out for me as chaos erupted. Then everything went dark. I stumbled back, my heart racing. What was happening? Light returned, but it wasn't the soft glow of the clearing I remembered. I found myself standing in a dense fog. Cold moisture clung to my skin, and every breath felt heavy. My flashlight flickered, casting weak beams into the gray. Hello? I called, my voice a mere whisper that seemed swallowed by the mist. Ben! A distant voice echoed, layered with desperation. It wasn't the woman. My throat tightened as I twisted around, searching for the source. The air thickened, and shapes began to form in the fog. Shadows moved, disjointed and bizarre. I felt a sickening churn in my stomach. What is this place? I mumbled to myself. Panic clawed at me, but I fought to stay calm. If the woman was right, I was still connected to the stone altar somehow. I took a step forward, but the ground felt uneven as if it were shifting beneath me. Then I saw it. A shimmer of light breaking through the fog. I rushed toward it, driven by instinct, hoping to find my way back to reality. Each step was met with a strange resistance, but I pushed against it. The light grew brighter and I stumbled into a small clearing. There I saw not only the altar but also flickering images, moments from my life playing out like bizarre snapshots. My childhood home, friends I hadn't spoken to in years, a faded photograph of the woman from before, her face smiling, caught in time. Ben! The voice returned, sharper this time. The woman from the altar, with urgency in her eyes, materialized before me, her figure radiant against the dull backdrop of fog. You were lost, but you can find your way back. You have to choose. Choose what? I asked, the confusion gnawing at me. Choose to remember, she pleaded, her voice trembling. Your memories hold the key. They're tied to the spells. You need to reconnect with them. As she spoke, shadows swirled at the edges of the clearing, and the growls echoed louder, encroaching upon us. What she said made sense, yet I felt an overwhelming fear of what I would uncover. What if I can't? I stammered, glancing back into the swirling mist. Then we'll remain trapped. She stepped closer, her expression pleading. I'm not just a part of your past, Ben. I'm your tether. Touch the symbols. Trust your heart. Looking over my shoulder, I noticed the symbols were painted in a soft glow on the altar behind her. They pulsed rhythmically, calling to me even through my fear. A decision piled on top of another. Suddenly, one figure surged from the mist, its glowing eyes fixing on me, a primal rage evident. Instinct took over. I spun back around to the altar and reached out, willing myself to remember whatever I had to. I can do this, I murmured, steeling myself. Just as my fingers brushed the surface, a deafening growl split the air. Everything around me seemed to shatter, fragments of light and sound exploding in a cacophony that threatened to consume me. And then, in an instant, the fog cleared. I found myself back at the clearing, adrenaline coursing through me. The altar stood untouched and the woman was gone. Yet the shadows remained, their growls rising in triumph. I realized the true fight had only just begun. That's when I saw it. Fresh carvings had appeared on the altar, luminous symbols pulsing with energy, beckoning me closer. The symbols on the altar glowed brighter, drawing me in like a moth to a flame. I felt an undeniable pull, an urge to reach through the weight of my fear and touch them again. But as I stepped closer, the shadows tightened around me, their forms shifting and writhing menacingly. "Stay back," I shouted, my voice stronger than before. I couldn't let fear consume me. Not now. The growls intensified, reverberating in an unsettling harmony that danced on the edges of my sanity. My instincts screamed to run, to escape this nightmare, but the woman's words echoed in my mind. Choose to remember. I hesitated, swallowing hard as I considered what lay ahead. If I went deeper, I could uncover choices I had long buried. But what if I found more than memories? What if I faced a truth I wasn't ready for? The shadows lunged forward, and I stumbled back, clenching my fists. "I won't let you trap me," I said, feeling the heat of defiance bloom in my chest. Every flicker of light bore into my mind. I needed to understand. I had to confront whatever this was. With a deep breath, I focused on the altar again. The symbols danced like they were alive. They felt familiar yet hidden, like a melody I could almost hear but couldn't quite name. I reached out, my fingers trembling as they hovered above a swirling mark shaped like a spiral. As my hand made contact, a rush of warmth enveloped me. Memories cascaded in swaths. My first bike ride, laughter with friends, moments painted with joy. They felt like a lifeline, grounding me against the chaos swirling around. But then, dark images broke through the happy recollections, flares of arguments, moments of loss, shadows creeping ever closer. They seemed hungry. I winced as pain washed over me, reminding me of unfinished business and unhealed wounds. Suddenly, a jagged silhouette broke the haze of my memories, darting closer. It was a figure cloaked in shadows, two fierce eyes locked onto mine. I could feel their malice, the intent to snatch my awareness back into the fog. Fear gripped me again, but I couldn't stop now. I leaned deeper into the warmth of the altar, feeling desperate for understanding. "What do you want from me?" I shouted, challenging the darkness. In response, the figure froze and the growling stopped. It appeared as if it was analyzing me, searching for something with that icy glare. I took a hesitant step forward, fueled by an urgency I didn't understand. "Show me," I yelled. "Show me what I need to see." The shadows shifted abruptly, revealing a smaller figure behind the towering darkness. It had a familiar shape. A child? My heart raced as realization flooded in. I knew who it was. "Ben," the small voice whispered, carrying a weight I could finally recognize. And then, just like that, the darkness swallowed the light, plunging me into a void. I gasped, my heart pounding. A sense of dread washed over me. There was something more waiting beneath the surface, a truth that would change everything. Everything is connected, I thought, as panic clawed at me once more. Would I have the strength to face it? That's when I heard the growl return, closer than ever. The growl echoed menacingly, a low rumble that resonated deep within me. I instinctively pressed my back against the altar, feeling its cool stone press against my skin. The shadows swirled, buzzing with energy like a hive of disturbed bees. "Ben?" I called out, my voice shaky. I needed to know where he was to reach him through the darkness. But I received no answer, only more growling. I squinted into the murky void, trying to grasp anything familiar. Suddenly, that flicker of warmth I had felt from the altar began to pulse more intensely, lighting up the symbols etched into the stone. They shifted, revealing hidden patterns that formed words I almost understood, but they slipped away like smoke when I tried to focus. Then something shifted behind me. I turned, heart racing, and there stood a figure cloaked in shadows, but now more solid, more defined. It was tall, towering over me, and its gaze felt piercing, as if it could see straight through to my soul. "What do you want?" I asked, trying to sound braver than I felt. It didn't answer. Instead, it pointed towards the altar where the spiral symbol still glowed. The warmth felt inviting, and I couldn't help but wonder if it was the key. Maybe if I interpreted it correctly, I could access what lay beyond the shadows. The growling intensified again, this time sounding almost playful, echoing laughter that bubbled beneath the surface. I stepped towards the altar, drawn by the pull of the light. As I neared it, the shadow lunged forward. I flinched, expecting an attack, but it stopped just inches away, its eyes locked onto mine. I felt the weight of time shifting, memories clawing at my consciousness like frantic hands. "You can't hide," it seemed to say. Suddenly a vision crashed into me, a flash of Ben's face bright and laughing. Then darkness crept in, twisting that joy into something sinister. I could see him running, a surge of fear flooding his features. I struggled to hold on to the warmth I felt, but it began to fade. "Ben, no!" I yelled, thrusting my hand out toward the altar. The urgency was unbearable. I needed to protect him, to uncover the truth. The growl turned into a roar, drowning my voice as shadows rushed around me, threatening to pull me back. I felt my breath quickening, panic clawing at my chest. It felt like falling when no ground was beneath. But I couldn't let them take me. I willed the warmth back again, letting it seep into my very core. "I remember," I shouted into the void, feeling the energy shift. "I remember everything." For a split second, the shadows hesitated. I felt their grasp weaken. But then the growl returned, louder and more ominous than before. I spun around to see the figure charging at me, talons extended, darkness swirling in a frenzy. And then everything went dark. I fell. There was no ground, only a void swallowing me whole. Silence wrapped around me, heavy and suffocating. I had to find a way back to the light. I couldn't let the shadows win. With that thought, a scream ripped through the silence, echoing in the depths of my mind. I realized it wasn't just my voice, it was someone else's. And that sound made my heart race with dread. It was Ben. Desperation surged within me, pushing me to fight against the darkness that surrounded us both. There had to be a way to protect him. I just had to find it before it was too late. The descent into darkness felt endless, as if I were being pulled through an infinite tunnel, my thoughts just as scattered. I tried to anchor myself. Ben's scream echoed louder, reverberating in my mind like a warning bell. I couldn't stay lost. I had to keep fighting. With a sudden jolt, I felt a shift. Something solid beneath me broke through the endless void. I was falling, but now I was landing. A jolt of cold air knocked the breath out of me as I tumbled onto a hard surface. Groaning, I pushed myself up, blinking against a harsh light that seared my retinas. I was back in the room with the altar, but everything felt different. The shadowy figure was gone, replaced by a swirling mass of darkness that lingered, a reminder of what I'd just escaped. My heart pounded as I looked around, trying to shake the remnants of that threatening presence. "Ben!" I called out again, my voice trembling. I hoped to hear him respond, but instead, silence loomed heavy. The altar still glowed dimly, the spiral symbol flickering. I crept toward it, every instinct screaming caution. As I approached, fragmented memories floated to the surface of my mind. Images of Ben and me laughing during summer breaks, hiking through the woods, stargazing on the roof. But it all tangled with something darker, sharp flashes of a figure lurching from the shadows. What was this place? I was sure it was tied to whatever was happening to Ben. Instinctively, I reached out to touch the altar's surface, and a wave of energy surged through me. A vision flickered, almost like a movie reel. I saw a quick glance of Ben running again, but this time his eyes were locked onto something looming behind him, its shadows stretching in an overwhelming rush. I felt fear clench my stomach. I couldn't let that creature touch him. The altar pulsed more intensely, as if responding to my distress. Suddenly, the shadows in the room shifted as if they were alive. I stepped back, my heart racing. "Leave him alone," I shouted, directing my frustration at the swirling dark. As my words echoed off the walls, the shadows dipped and darted, forming into a shape that danced just out of reach. It twisted and curled, flickering as if teasing me. I took a hesitant step forward. "Show yourself." Quiet settled, save for the thrum of my heartbeat. I felt goosebumps spring up on my skin. That's when I noticed something in the corner of the room, a faint glow peeking from behind the altar. It seemed to pulse in rhythm with the symbols etched into the stone. Curiosity momentarily replaced my fear. I approached slowly, and sure enough, the glow widened, revealing a small, dark passageway. My heart raced. I had to know what was behind it. Maybe it was a way to save Ben, but as I reached for it, a cold gust blew through the room, slamming my hand back. "You shouldn't be here," a chilling voice whispered from the shadows. The realization hit me cold. Something wanted to stop me. My pulse surged as I glanced back at the passageway. I had to make a choice. I could run or I could face it. There wasn't much time. I clenched my fists. I wouldn't run. I had to find Ben. Heart pounding, I stepped towards the passage. Gritting my teeth, I pushed aside the dread. Whatever was hiding in there, I wanted to confront it. Taking a deep breath, I stepped inside, not knowing what awaited me on the other side. The passage was narrow, the walls damp and rough against my fingertips as I moved deeper into the darkness. I could feel the weight of the shadows pressing against me, but I couldn't turn back. Each step was fueled by the urgency pulsing through my veins. Ben was out there, and I couldn't let him face whatever was haunting us alone. The air grew colder, and I shivered involuntarily. The faint glow from behind me faded until it was just me and the encroaching shadows. The whispers returned, echoing the urgent plea I could barely make out. "Help us." I felt my heart race. I was certain these voices belonged to those trapped in the woods, to the woman I had seen earlier, and most importantly, to Ben. Up ahead, a dull light appeared, a flickering glow that beckoned me forward. I approached cautiously, drawn by the gentle pulse that resonated through the stone walls. The echo of Ben's name haunted my mind, urging me onwards. Did he need me? What was I about to find? As I stepped into the chamber, I was hit by a rush of warmth contrasting with the damp air of the passage. Before me stood an incredible sight, a wide circular room illuminated by ethereal light that seemed to emanate from the very walls. In the center, the stone altar stood tall, surrounded by swirling images of memories, visages of people I had loved, moments I had cherished, and the boy I once was. "Ben!" I called out, searching through the phantoms that surrounded the altar. The bright light began to morph, revealing layered images of Ben, a moment from our childhood, a fall while learning to ride a bike, laughter shared with friends. Each memory ebbed and flowed, a tapestry woven among the shadows. But beyond those moments, I glimpsed snippets of a darker nature, Ben's fear, moments of loss shared, and the suffocating pull of shadows that lurked just out of sight. "Ben!" I shouted again, desperation creeping in. The light flickered, and for a fleeting moment I saw him, a silhouette standing behind the altar. Fear stabbed through me. Was he trapped in those memories? The shadows recoiled as if sensing my resolve, and I moved toward the altar, determined to reach him. "I won't let you take him," I yelled, feeling a surge of anger alongside my fear. The shadows hissed back, attempting to draw me into their depths, a wall of darkness blocking my path, but I couldn't falter now. I could see the fear in his eyes, felt the connection between us grow stronger as I neared the flickering light again. I extended my hand to the stone surface, tracing the familiar spiral symbol, the one I had touched before. Warmth radiated from my palm, spreading through me and illuminating the chamber. I could hear Ben's voice echoing in the chamber, layered over the whispers, trying to break free. "Ben!" I called out again, and suddenly the shadows writhed. They twisted and turned around me, trying to claw at my confidence, but I wouldn't be swayed. I steadied myself, focusing on the energy pooling at my chest, channeling it into a protective barrier. The figure behind the altar solidified, revealing Ben's face. Fear washed over me. "Don't worry," I ventured. "I'm here." The moment our eyes connected, I felt an electric charge pulse between us, momentarily severing the shadow's grip. "You have to break this," he shouted, his voice strained. "You have to remember." "Together," I assured him, determination coursing through my veins. "We can do this." With that resolve, I pressed my palm against the symbol on the altar once more. The energy surged brighter, enveloping us in a brilliant light as the shadows shrieked in agony. The figures of Ben's memories danced around us, lending strength to my resolve as I willed the darkness to retreat. There was a blinding flash. The light ignited the chamber, illuminating the forgotten faces trapped in the haze. But even as the light expanded, the shadows fought desperately, and fear clawed at my throat. Would I be able to free Ben? The whispers turned to roars, echoing in the chamber as tendrils of darkness lashed out around us. "You can't escape!" they screamed, a chorus of terrified voices. But with every ounce of resolve, I pressed forward, grounding myself in the tether of our shared memories, the laughter, the love. "We are stronger than you," I shouted, feeling the light pulse in sync with Ben standing at my side. With an explosion of energy, the shadows recoiled, the howls of desperation echoing as the chamber trembled. Tarmac tendrils of light filled the space, breaking the chains that held the figures captive. They began to swirl around us, merging into a radiant spectrum of colors. Ben gripped my hand tighter, and in that instant, I felt the barriers surrounding us shatter. The shadows began to dissolve, their anguished cries fading into the background as we surged forward, buoyed by a radiant light. Then, as suddenly as it began, the ground beneath us solidified, the shadows melted away, and I blinked against the glaring sun. A soft breeze swept through the trees, cradling us in warmth. The forest was alive with sound, yet uncanny stillness echoed through the surrounding woods. I stood alone under the expansive sky, feeling disoriented. Where was Ben? I turned around, searching frantically, but the only thing around me was the familiar outline of trees, their crooked branches swaying in the gentle breeze. "Ben!" I called out, panic setting in as silence followed. Nothing responded, not even the echoes of the whispers. I was left alone with the remnants of those moments, the memories that had both haunted and freed me. Somehow, the weight of the past lingered like a cloak on my shoulders as I remembered the faces caught between realms. I exhaled shakily, looking around the familiar clearing where shadows had stretched before. I didn't know whether what happened was real or a figment of my imagination. The line blurred between the supernatural and the explicable, leaving me with more questions than answers. I took a moment, breathing in the crisp air, recalling the warmth Ben had felt beside me. "We broke something free," I whispered, uncertainty knotting my stomach. Did I save him? Was it enough? I scanned the trees, feeling the fresh wind across my face. The forest was still watchful, the shadows still there, yet something had shifted. I knew somewhere out there, the echoes still existed, and as much as I wanted to run, something drew me back. "Maybe next time," I murmured to myself. With a last glance at the reverberating woods, I stepped away. The echoes followed me, a reminder of the connection, as I ventured forward, unsure if I would ever truly escape the web we had left behind.